1, 2, 3.
Hi YouTube, this is Evie. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a very special guest with me. This is Mr. Tex. This is my Dom. And I know that for my videos for December I was planning on doing we're also gonna have a corgi with us.
I have 2 pups.
But my videos for December are all going to be themed around getting involved in like the real life community and meeting people in like BDSM in real life and everything. And I thought it'd be really great if I could ask him some questions because he has more experience than I do, and also just talk about our relationship and how we met and stuff. So that is what we're doing. So how did we actually meet?
So Evie and I, we met at our local dungeon at a play party there. And this was the first time she'd been to that particular party. It was also the last time they were going to hold this party for a little while.
I had, it was when I was moving, so I had gone to a dungeon in the city where I originally lived, and then I moved, and I was trying to get involved in like the new community. So I wanted to try out a play party, and this was kind of the last one they were having because they were trying to find a new location to move to. I wanted to make sure that I went even though it was like a weekday and I was going to have to go to work. But I went anyways, and I did it, and it turned out to be a really great thing. But
yeah,
I did.
Yeah, I'm happy she did. The really nice thing about this party is that it split up into a social time first and then like a playtime. So that allows people who may not necessarily know if they want to play, but they would like to meet people and sort of maybe they find somebody interesting and are like, okay, I'll hang out and play. So the way this party was structured is really nice for newcomers that way. And so I met Evie during social time.
And the good thing about having it split up between like the social and the play party time is, at least at this particular dungeon, I have it set up so you don't have to prepay for the play party if you only go to the social time. So it turns out you don't meet anybody or you don't have like a scene set up, you don't have to like pay for the party and then not actually play, which is personally some people are fine like paying and just going and not playing, but for me I'm like, if I pay $15 or whatever it is, like I want to be able to actually play when I'm there. So that's a good option as well if you just want to like be able to see what the place looks like and kind of get a feel for the vibe of the community before you actually like commit to spending $15 or $20 on a play party. Yeah,
and sometimes the vibe's not right for you, and it's nice to not feel pressured to stick around when you're just like, I'm not going to have a good time here tonight. And so it's definitely something to look towards when you're scoping out parties.
But basically we met at a party, and I actually asked permission first, and I watched him do a scene with the partner he was there with originally. I think that's really important. If you haven't played with somebody before and you're interested in doing pickup play, which is just where you casually meet somebody and you're like, hey, do you want to do a scene together? Like, watch them play and interact with other people, because that's going to give you a really good sense if, one, your scene is going to fit together and it's going to like, you're going to be able to vibe and have a good scene, and make sure that they play like safely, make sure they like respect people's safe words, see how they do aftercare with other people, see what their kind of in-scene communication is like. So very helpful and so very important, especially if you're just new to the scene in general and you don't know what people's reputations are. It turns out he has a very good reputation, so I got lucky. But always just, if you can, ask permission first and like watch them play with somebody else to get a sense of who they are and how they play.
It was very hot too, having Evie kind of stand behind me watching, very patiently. It kind of clicked right away that she was very service submissive and worked really well. So I had no problem, making her wait to take her place. So.
Well, and there were lots of other scenes going around at the same time. So something I'm going to talk about more in one of our later videos we're going to be talking about like etiquette at play parties is it's okay to spectate, but generally do so at a distance that doesn't make you feel like a participant. So I could kind of stand and like watch their scene happening, but then also kind of observe what was going on around, because it was just packed that night because it was one of the last play parties they were having there. So it was like everybody was jam-packed like as much as they could into the actual play area, but then the entire periphery around that was just wall-to-wall people watching, and that's generally fine. It's just don't stand so close that you could like, catch a tail on a flogger or something. What's your first impression of me?
You were very quiet, but very outgoing. You definitely did not seem to feel out of place. It was more like you're just a quiet person in general and not someone like, oh my god, this is what are all these weirdos doing? So you're dressed in a very cute all black outfit with a t-shirt. It had Milan, New York, in Paris.
I think
or
it
something.
was.
Yeah,
Or
it's very-
Tokyo.
Tokyo, yeah. It was
Tokyo.
very adorable, and I talked with you about all those cities. And I was actually, I already planned a trip where I was going to Milan a little bit later. And I was like, oh, I'm going there.
Let me clarify. I didn't know anybody at this party. I knew somebody introduced me to the party and told me that it was happening, but they weren't going to be there because they were out of town. So I didn't know a soul at this party, and so I went in. I just like scoped out the area and like saw the people that were socializing and tried to kind of figure out which groups like seemed like more close and intimate and which groups seemed like it would be okay if I sat next to them. And I just happened to find a seat directly next to him and then a couple of other people that seemed friendly. And I got really lucky, again, just like being able to find a seat next to some people that were open to like, hey, here's a new person to our community, but not necessarily to the scene. And I felt really comfortable right away just because of the fact they actually included me in the conversation and like didn't seem to like ignore me right away, which in the city where we live, there tends to be a bit of aloofness around like actually getting to know like new people and treat them like friends. But regardless, I had like a good first impression of like your whole group and be like, look, people actually know what they're talking about, and like I feel safe here and I feel included, and it was good. And I was very impressed with your scene with your other partner.
Thank you.
I was like, oh, look, he knows how to be a good D-type. Look at him following all the rules.
If you negotiate something with a D-type, or you are a D-type, keep this in mind. Like, that scene, the very first scene that I negotiated, it has to take as long as it needs to take, which means somebody's well cared for, aftercare. The scene is as long as it needs to be. You don't want to cut any corners. So if you see somebody who's like, oh, I want to play with you, I've got this other thing, but I'll hurry that up. I'll make sure to get that over like really quick. That's a little sketch. I mean, new people are wonderful, and getting to play with new people are wonderful, but let's never ever forget, it's important to treat people with respect, and it's important. Yeah, especially if you're a D-type, you don't want to be known as a flake. Also, if you're an S-type, you don't want to be known as a flake.
Just don't be known as a flake.
It's a different, that's a different issue. So yes, no flake.
Actually, on that note, what advice would you give? Okay, first question. What advice would you give to new D-types in the scene, or new people who are like new to the community and want to be a top or be a D-type in general? Like, what would be good advice?
Find a type of play that you enjoy and enjoy on many levels. So this can be impact play, this can be rope type play. When you're first starting out in a scene, you aren't particularly well known, and so some people will choose not to play with you because of how they manage risk. That's totally fine. You'll usually find plenty of people who are happy to play with you on some level, especially a big public party like this where there's DMs around. That means for a lot of people's risk calculation, a lot of S-type risk calculations, they'll just be like, you know what? I didn't have anything else I was doing. I'm here. This seems like an interesting person. I'm going to go and play with them. And so to that end, keep it simple and keep it straightforward.
Don't break out the Florentine flogging.
Yeah, don't go nuts. Don't do something you saw online on Pornhub or something like that, and just like, this is totally how things are done. Keep things within your skill level, and then from that, you build a base of play partners who will, more than happily recommend you to other people, be more open to you doing more complicated scenes in the future. And so sort of like, as kind of a D-type, like we want to be like masters of everything. And it's really important to understand, like when we're starting out, that's sort of the D side of Sub Frenzy. Is like we get our pair of floggers we got custom made from a source on Etsy with some rare animal leather, and they're 3-color
hand carved.
Hand carved. You're gonna clip to your belt, and you're just going in there. You're like swinging them around, and you're like, who will be my bottom of choice tonight? And like everybody's like, I don't know who this dude is. And they're little.
And it mostly just makes people like really sketched out if you do stuff like that. They're like, this guy either has a huge ego, and personally for me, I hate playing with people who are just like, I'm like God's gift to submissives. Like I don't like playing with people like that. I don't know a lot of people who enjoy playing with people who are just like, look how awesome of a dom I am. I am like God's gift to all S-types. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
That's generally a good approach. I think humility, without necessarily being derisive towards yourself, is usually a good thing. Like, be honest about where you are with your skill set and where you're at in terms of play level.
I mean, the biggest one thing is just be honest. I mean, people, especially younger doms, and I definitely had this has taken me a while to really learn how important this is honesty. Because if you try to like sell yourself as like this master flogger when you've literally owned that piece of leather and wood for maybe a month, people might buy it for a minute, and then after that, even if they're not particularly experienced receiving flogging, they'll just be like, this guy isn't that good, or this girl isn't that good, or it's just like, maybe I'm not in the flogging because this isn't going that well. I mean, it takes a long time to learn things. It takes a long time to sort of have kind of confidence. But that's the great thing about this community is, as long as you're sort of like, hey, I've got this flogger. I've been to a class. It was how to do it safely. I've looked online about how to do things safely. I'd really love to tie you up to a St. Andrew's cross and just kind of flog your ass and back. Would that be something you're excited for? So many people are going like, yes. And to that end, like this goes into, I know Evie's talked about this quite a bit on her channel, is separating sex from BDSM play can help quite a bit.
Which is hard for some people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, it is like a very like erotic sexual experience, especially at play parties. You'll see a lot of, especially penetrative intercourse happen. Like you'll see a lot of people play with like Hitachis and like have like orgasm control type of play involved, but generally like what would be considered like vanilla intercourse like doesn't really happen. Or would you have as dominant as a submissive wanted to approach you to have a scene?
Just like, first off, if you have seen me play before, talk about that. If you just sort of come up and are like, I like beards, would you beat me up?
But I do like beards.
I know. I would worry a little bit about your ability to be safe, because to me, and again, this is based on my experience with the local scene, is if somebody just kind of approaches me and is like just based on my look and not necessarily having seen me played, I would worry about their ability to sort of like judge where their limits are. It's a little bit judgy, and if they were like, oh, so-and-so recommended me to you, then I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, it's like, oh, they heard they really like this one type of play. Oh, if you want to do that, I hear Mr. Tex is going to be at this play party. He's good at that, chat with him. That's totally fine.
Like, that's kind of like how our conversation was. We were talking about electroplay, which I had never done before, and we started a conversation about that, and I told him I was interested in trying it.
That's right.
So that's how we, that's how, you forget.
I've done like rope top, electro top, impact top, so sometimes it's just, yeah.
I mean, we kind of did a little bit of all of that in the scene that we did, so, I mean, we kind of did mix and match, but how we started out was doing like, oh, I'm interested in doing electroplay. Like, I don't know how the conversation started exactly, but he brought up that you want to do it, and then I watched him do another scene, and that's how that all went.
Well, I would say for the advice is just, come talk to me. I'm happy approaching other people. Also, what I would definitely recommend, and this goes for both D and S types, is if it's really important that you play at a party, negotiate or see if you can reach out to someone first on FetLife, because a lot of times by the time I'm already at a party, I'll have at least one scene, if not my entire night booked. And again, like that one scene could very well potentially turn into my night if some parties will even have forum threads, chat threads that are specifically like, who's up for play? Usually those are kind of the bigger parties, or it may be parties where people tend to travel from out of town, but they'll set up like actual threads that's like, chat here for play. And don't be turned off by the fact there may not be many responses. A lot of that happens in private messages. So.
Yeah, even as well as a submissive, like trying to find a D type to play with. Like I went to a party, I think, 2 weekends ago, and I was going with a group of other S types, and I wanted to have a scene set up for when I went there, because I know in the past at this particular party that I was going to, it was like felt like it was 80% socializing and 20% party, like, play type stuff, and I wanted to make sure I got to do some of the play type stuff, because that's why I paid to go to these things. And so I kind of, like, looked through all the people who had RSVP'd, and then I saw who I had mutual friends with, and people that I had maybe, like, seen before, and I sent out a couple messages to people, and I got a response from one person that I was interested in playing with, and we negotiated a little bit over FetLife, but then we actually saved sort of most of the negotiation in terms of what actually was going to happen. Like, we're going to do this kind of play with this kind of toy for this long, sort of like in-depth negotiation once we actually got there, because we didn't really have the opportunity to like reserve space ahead of time or like see what was going to be there, because at this particular party they change out equipment somewhat frequently and like rearrange the room a lot, so it's kind of hard to tell ahead of time like what's going to be there.
Yeah, and you'll also find, well, and I don't work for FetLife. It sounds like we're just mentioning FetLife.
But it's like the place to go. It's like
it's really good at this type of thing, and you can also see ahead of time like what different tops are into. Keep in mind the types of play a top engages in might be different if it's with like an established partner in their home versus at like a party. I definitely do, like if you see somebody who perhaps they're a needle top and you're like, oh, I'll talk with this guy, and they'll I'll talk with this girl, and she'll stick me full of needles. You may show up there, and then she'll say, "I'm not comfortable doing that in public." So it's a good reason to sort of reach out to people and sort of talk about like what you would like.
And you also on that note, like thinking about needle play, make sure never assume what is okay at a play party.
Yes.
Read ahead of time what is going to be okay, because some places are like everything goes, and they mean everything, and some people are like no breath play, no knife play, no needle play, no scat, no water sports, no. Sometimes there's no suspension, sometimes there's no bondage. Period. Like, make sure just that is going to be it's going to be kind of my etiquette video more in depth. But read ahead of time, so if you do plan a scene, you don't find out at the party that play is not allowed. And if you're doing something or you want to do something that might is kind of in a gray area, you can talk to the DMs beforehand and be like, this is the kind of scene that we're planning.
The worst thing you can see on a party page or a space page is no edge play. Because what does that mean? Suspension is edge play. I mean, edge play really is just sort of anything.
It's open to personal interpretation.
Yeah, there's really not. Everybody has like their own slightly different definitions. Like, oh, it's like you said, no edge play, but there are people doing suspensions. I totally consider suspensions edge play because you can easily.
People think gags are edge play.
Yeah.
Or just anything like just if there's a gray area at all, ask beforehand, or at the very least ask before you engage in it at the party, because you don't want everybody else at the party calling over DMs to your scene every 2 seconds.
Didn't we hear somebody was talking about they were in a space where they considered spanking with implements edge play?
Yeah, I think that was a swinger party though.
Yeah.
So that is
swingers would be fun to talk about later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But if you're in a community or like in an area that is more like swinger focused than BDSM focused, if swinger parties are like the only thing that's available to you, I would say go for it and just see what is okay there. But for the most part, swinger parties and like swinger type communities and BDSM community, there's a very small overlap on that Venn diagram, but it's not a very wide overlap.
It'll depend on communities. I would say who is a very BDSM focused person. I love going to swinger parties with like my moderate toys, like my medium sized flogger, and then just seeing them go, oh my god, you hit people with that, and I'm just like,
yes, and they like it.
They have like the big, like, comes out of the scabbard rubber flogger that's just, the size of, it's like goes from here to here, and then just being like, oh, if you think that, yeah. Anyways, sorry.
Yes, scaring all the mostly vanilla swinger people.
It's always fun when you can get a reaction from people. Positive, don't hit anybody with it just to prove a point. Negotiate.
Yeah, no hitting people that you don't ask to beforehand. So the video actually cut before we were done filming because I'm not used to this particular camera setup, but hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Of course, as always, leave any questions or comments you have for me or Mr. Text down below, whether that be about getting involved in the scene or like being mind dominated or like a relationship or whatever it is. Feel free to leave that all down below. I will mostly be answering, although I'm sure Corey will try to help. Although English is not his first language, he will do his best. I'm going to be, again, making all my videos in December themed around getting involved in the real life community. So if you're interested in that and you haven't already, please subscribe, which you can do down below. I do make videos twice a week, so be on the lookout for that. And as always, hope you have a good rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye.